Hey, Emma,
Yes, Madeline.
what do you call it when, and full disclaimer, I'm kind of stumped on the setup here, when there's a conflict between someone who's saying that they're all bark but no bite, and they want you to root for them, and they oak.
I don't know.
It's the gee, I'm a tree wars. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm here. I just couldn't figure out the setup. I don't know. Host Madelyn.
I'm your big spooky eyeball, host Emma.
And thanks for tuning into this week's show. This week we're talking about Geometry Wars, and we're talking about Look Outside, which, to quote every single review of that game, you should not do in that game.
Yeah.
Every single one. The little pre-article mini headline was, just kidding, don't do it.
To be fair, I think that is how it is introduced in the game itself, too.
Sure. But I got a little tired of the joke. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about shapes. Just shapes and beats. No, it's
Not
Geometry Wars.
Is just shapes and beats in the spirit of Geometry Wars, but just like rhythm game? I think it's a little different.
I think it's not fair to say that every game that involves shapes is in the spirit of Geometry Wars, although if you are considering it by Talk This mashup standards, perhaps.
There's an undercurrent of people who like Geometry Wars.
I think that's probably putting it mildly. It is the top-selling Xbox Live Arcade game ever.
Yeah.
So to say there's an undercurrent...
Well, people aren't, always effusive about it, but occasionally it, comes out.
Well, it requires them to say the word geometry.
Yeah.
Which implies that they like geometry or war. And nobody really likes coming out in favor of geometry or war, to be perfectly frank.
That's true.
So...
There's not much really geometry in Geometry Wars. Whenever I heard about it before I knew what it was, which wasn't just for this show, I had become aware of what Geometry Wars was at some point. I really was some education game that people were really into.
No.
But no.
Geometry Wars is in fact a top-down, two-stick multi-directional shooter thing from Bizarre Creations, the most recent one by Lucid Games, but created by Bizarre Creations, and published by Microsoft Game Studios. The original was actually a tech demo, where basically the studio was given some tester Xbox controllers, and they were really bad, and they were having a really hard time with calibrating them for their actual project, which was Project Gotham Racing. So
no relation to Batman.
No relation. Just,
by the way.
Is it related to New York?
Maybe. I don't know.
I actually didn't look into anything about Project Gotham
Gotham Racing. Is Gotham a real place in New York?
Well, it's a nickname for New York.
Oh. From Batman?
I don't know where...
Or is Gotham from the nickname of New York?
I think that one.
Interesting.
I don't know.
You learned something new.
This isn't a Batman podcast.
I just was Project Gotham Racing. What is this Batman racing game? But it in fact has nothing to do with Batman.
Although a Batman racing game would be cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So they made an app that eventually became Geometry Wars, but they made the Stephen Cakebread.
Cakey.
Insane name. Which I don't think is offensive to say about a man whose name is Cakebread.
The reason I say cakey is there were at least a couple articles with him where they did have quote cakey in the middle of his name, that's his nickname.
Great.
I'm not sure how real that is.
You do kind of have to lean into it if your name is Cakebread.
Yeah.
That can't be something that you think everyone's thinking it.
Yeah.
You probably can't be the person in the office who's bringing in baked goods.
No.
Like, that would be too much.
You have to be the guy programming a weird little game.
Correct. So they did this as like a little tester for the analog sticks. And then, when they made Project Gotham Racing 2 on the Xbox in 2003, the original Geometry Wars was a little game on the arcade machine in the garage. And there was one interview with Eurogamer where they were like, we kind of hoped that this would get like a line at the end of someone's review, right? Because we thought it was fun, and we hoped someone would mention it. But it turned out people really liked it, and it got way more attention than they expected. And so that led to them making an actual version of it, which was Geometry Wars Evolved, right?
Retro
Evolved. Thank you.
Yes. It is like pure, at least the original version was like purely code.
Yeah.
The reason it looks the way it does with like various different just shapes
and beats.
Hence no beats. Well, I assume there's beats in there.
There's music too, but
less emphasized. Is because it's all made like via programmer art, because there weren't any artists available to like do it.
Yeah, they were like,
so
what can we code?
It is very code based, very like systems forward in the most pure way possible. So when you play it, they've obviously added some art to it, but the core idea of the way it looks is very much still like there's these simple little shapes, and then there's more complicated shapes, and then there's big scary shapes, and when you shoot them, they explode in pleasing ways, and so do you.
Yeah, it's interesting in the reviews to read how much personality gets ascribed to these shapes.
That's just human nature,
I know.
Baby.
It's a testament to human nature, but that
Bobo and Kiki.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. So it came out, Geometry Wars, I almost said just shapes and beats. I have to stop making that joke because my brain is wiring. Geometry Wars Retro Evolved was an Xbox 360 launch title in 2005. Like I said, it was one of the earliest Xbox Live Arcade games. They didn't even really know when Microsoft approached them to make the game. The studio didn't even really know what Xbox Live Arcade was. So it was that early. Like they were like, we got it on a disc, which is funny to think about now. But it was, like I said, the most downloaded Xbox Live Arcade game of the history of that service, and also sometimes regarded as one of the best Xbox 360 launch games. Which is crazy. It is just shooting pentagons.
But you know, the arcade shooter is one of like the core starting genres of video games.
This is
right?
ultimately just Super Galaga in the end.
It's pleasing to watch the little aliens blow up, I guess. Let's not think about that too hard, I guess.
Yeah.
In this, it's just shapes, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's what you want to do your geometry homework.
Correct. People were really impressed with the graphics of some of it at the time, which is also, it's just interesting. Here's that Madelyn marvels at the passage of time portion of the podcast.
Ready.
Again. But there was a lot of writing about this on Eurogamer for whatever reason. I don't know why. But there was a really glowing Eurogamer retrospective that was like, basically Geometry Wars is the root of all of what we have in gaming now. Which is a little much. But they were talking about how it was a game that kind of reinvigorated that arcade aesthetic, right? By being so simple, but also like powerful graphically for what it was at the time. There's a direct line to kind of that style being so prominent now. It is one of the earliest examples of a compact digital game, like in this kind of Bejeweled era here, alongside that people bought for $5 and like played in a little way, and that made a bunch of money doing that. And also, it was not easy. So it's an early pioneer of the like get good, Cuphead, whatever you want, like the very hard game. In a sense, Elden Ring, straight
so
line
true.
to Geometry
Yeah.
Wars.
I mean, one of the core features of like Xbox Live Arcade was like the scoreboards.
Yeah.
Right. Of, there's a lot of games where you could get scores and you would compete with your friends and on worldwide leaderboards. It was in the Eurogamer like retrospective interview.
Yeah.
They're talking about Stephen Cakebread, old
Cakey.
Was talking about like eventually to get a high score, you'd have to spend like 20 to 30 hours playing the game. So like they'd leave their Xbox on, come back, play, go to work with their Xbox on, come back, play, go to sleep, and then you would put up these big high scores. And he says like in hindsight, I wish that they wouldn't have been able to do that. And I don't know if it works quite like that in subsequent titles. But people got very into the things that they could do with it beyond the developer intention, which also very much reflective of our current gaming sphere, I think. Speedrunning.
True.
This is kind of the opposite of speedrunning,
Right.
perhaps, but
The similar idea.
Yeah. The let me solo her guy.
Correct.
Born from the same impulse, I think.
Was also interesting to hear, I can't remember what interview this was, but in Geometry Wars, initially they were like, initially they wanted to have levels, but they were like, oh no, another game that was mostly just shapes. I can't find it in my notes. Mutant Storm came out at the same time. So they were like, uh-oh, people will think we copied Mutant Storm, so it's just going to be kind of like Endless Runner here.
Yeah, it was an interesting, I think the interview was like, it's an interesting convergent evolution because we must have, I must have started working on the first version of Geometry Wars around the same time as they started working on Mutant Storm. And he's like, was there something in the media at that time that caused inspiration in multiple people, which is interesting to think about, but
It's weird when occasions of that happen in various forms of media, where it's like, two people just happen to be working on the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Something culturally.
I do think the DS version, Galaxies, is a little bit more level-based.
Yes, they've added levels into some of the subsequent ones once it became clear that they had a hit on their hands.
Yeah.
But it was also interesting to read about their justification for adding in multipliers, right? Score multipliers, which of course, all the way back to Pac-Man, right? Are we thinking about how to multiply our score, or eat the ghosts at least? But basically they didn't have them initially. And then they realized that if you didn't have the score multipliers that enemies dropped sometimes, and if you didn't pump up the power on them high enough that players actually felt like they were worth picking it up, that players would essentially optimize all of the fun out of the game. Which is such an interesting human trait.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of just like human nature being captured in Geometry Wars. Basically, they were like, if you don't give the player an incentive to fly toward the enemies and take a risk sometime, there's no reason to not just keep flying in circles, because the most efficient way to get points is going to be to like get the enemies to follow you in a line and pick them off.
Yeah.
And so if you don't give the player a reason not to do that, even though it's less fun, the power of number go up is too strong to incentivize having fun.
I mean, it very much is interesting, like, because this is so, like, focused, right? It's one thing you're doing. It's very pure. We've talked about, like, pure games on the podcast before. We've obviously talked about Tetris or whatever. But it is interesting to, like, look at these games specifically and think about, like, the core game design lessons that you can take from them. Like, you have to force the player to be aggressive sometimes.
Yeah.
Is like a core of like action games. And you can see that here.
Exactly.
Too, right? Because if you aren't forced to be aggressive sometimes, it becomes just a game of attrition.
Yeah. But it's crazy to think that we like force that on ourselves from something that is ostensibly fun.
Yeah. Because, it's fun, but also skill.
Yeah.
Like sports.
That's true.
Or knitting.
Knitting ultimately really a sport.
Yeah.
Anyway, Geometry Wars has a few sequels. They released Retro Evolved 2 in 2008, which is apparently sort of like the peak, to be honest. And then, yeah, like Emma said, there are some that came out on some of the more handheld-y systems, and then they had
The DS apparently happened because, per an IGN retrospective, they didn't even name this person, I don't believe, from reading it, but they said, like, one enthusiastic programmer had already made, like, a homebrew version for their DS.
Awesome.
And they were like, yeah, this'll work. And so they made Galaxies, which I have seen a lot of some, like, enthusiastic fondness for as well.
Yeah. And then there was a threequel, Dimensions, in 2014, that I think was handled by Lucid Games, because I am pretty sure by this point Bizarre had folded. But the IP, I think I got passed around by that point, but now, in buying Activision Blizzard in 2023, Microsoft does own it again. So
have not done anything with it, though.
Look for Geometry Wars as the launch title for the once and future Xbox.
Well, I'm curious. I don't actually know how like Luminous Arise did.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious if like Microsoft was like watching that as like Sony's sort of pure property that they've taken from the grave.
Yeah.
And was like, maybe we do this with like Geometry Wars. So I don't think that a new Geometry Wars is entirely out of the question.
Well, it would be so easy to do.
Whether or not people will want it or respond to it, a whole different question.
Researching this did have me contemplating getting Sectori.
Yes, that's where I started to see it. That's when Geometry Wars was reminded to me.
Yeah.
Because I saw people playing Sectori and being like, is it just like Geometry Wars again?
Sectori looks fun. I hate to say it. Unfortunate for me, it looks fun. I was hoping it would be for Mac, but it's not. It is on PlayStation, so maybe. But it's the kind of game that, as I contemplate flights and whatever, would be great for a flight. Mm-hmm. Much like, Vampire Survivors or whatnot. So I was a little mad that some of us don't have a Steam Deck.
Oh well.
Alas. Would be interesting today to think about how do you make a Geometry Wars that is graphically impressive. That was the thing that surprised me most about some of this stuff, is that everyone was like, the graphics are great. I'm like, it's a square.
But you can have so many particles on screen now. Do you know?
Yeah.
So that's how you do it. You just make it so that nobody with even a hint of a seizure risk can look at it.
Yeah, you'll find out. It's actually a medical diagnostic tool now.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate that the title is Geometry Wars.
It's memorable, at least.
It's memorable, but as you said, it doesn't give, I want to play this and have fun. I mean, it's fortunate now. It probably doesn't matter so much now. There are people who are fond enough of Geometry Wars that it would get some charming coverage around it being relaunched. But You couldn't call this game Geometry Wars now.
Geo Conflict. That sounds like a different game.
That sounds like a much different game. You'd have to call it Just Shapes and Ships.
Just GW with like a subtitle.
I think we've got the brand settled in. Microsoft, give us a call. We want to make this happen.
Yeah, no, they can take care of that themselves,
Yeah,
I think.
But, funny to think of, like, a gigantic success coming out of something that was like basically a necessary test program for a crappy controller.
Well, is that not the retro version? I mean, they probably had these back then too. Is that not just the retro version of game jams?
Oh, Emma's setting up a transition.
Yes, I am. Unless you have anything else to say about Geometry Wars.
No, I would
before we
play
move
it,
on.
but I like genuinely might play Sectori, but I have to finish my games in February first. I can't buy a game. It's a roguelike Geometry Wars, for those not familiar.
Yeah.
With like the 3, you level up and you get 3 cards of upgrades.
Dude, I love picking between 3 things.
Me too.
That's what the gamers love.
Well, the gamers yearn for 3 choices. Maybe 4, but no more.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, is that not the retro version of a game jam? You're so right, Emma. Why do you say that?
Well, because our new game is Look Outside, which is a 2025 survival horror RPG developed by Francis Colombe and published by Devolver Digital, whose original version was made during like a 1-month game jam. And the developer got a lot of positive response to it and was already talking with Devolver about a few longer term projects, and showed this to them and was like, does this seem cool? And apparently Devolver was like, yeah. And he called up some friends and they put together a full release in an additional 5 months.
So this gets the Madelyn talk this trademark thing of, oh, crazy, that can still happen today.
I know. They were initially wanting to get it out within like 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
To like capitalize on the word
hype.
of mouth and the buzz. But that was just too ambitious for them, I suppose. And so, but apparently launch was still pretty good, and it also received a bunch of post-launch updates. I think the most recent one was called like Final Vision, which was a 2.0 update. We'll see if that's the final vision.
Yeah.
In October of this year.
Yeah. It's made an RPG Maker.
Yeah. So there are still a bunch of RPG Maker games out there. The culture has never fully died. So
suck it, Unity.
Yeah.
Get bent. Do you think there are any prestige brands other than Devolver in games at this point?
I guess Annapurna kind of imploded.
Correct.
I don't really know what's going on with them right now.
That feels tarnished, even if they're still around.
Fellow Traveler,
okay, maybe.
I feel like is establishing themselves.
Yeah.
There's Thunderful and Kowloon Knights.
Sure.
I feel like Devolver's profile has actually slightly lowered. Like, I feel like they used to be like the one indie brand that people knew.
Yeah.
And that's not really true anymore. Like, they know Devolver and also, like, a few others.
Yeah. It's just interesting
Their shows have not been as good recently, is what I've heard.
Yes,
so.
That's fair. It's just interesting to think about, especially in, like, the, A24 of games context.
Yeah. But Neon is now doing better than, like, A24 at this point, so things changing in the film world, things changing in the games world.
Maybe it's a similar trajectory. Anyway, in Look Outside, you play as Sam, who's a dude living in an apartment, and things in the world start to get weird. Basically, you discover over the course of the game, and I'll try to avoid the major spoilers here, but you discover over the course of the game that, you should not look outside. Because
there's an eyeball, there's a sentient eyeball, she's friendly, living in your wall, and I believe she's like, look outside when you first talk to her.
Yeah.
But then if you talk to her again, she's like, wait, no, I meant don't look outside. Sorry.
My bad.
So you're really not supposed to look outside.
Because if you look outside, you'll see, as you discover, an alien in the sky who, by looking upon it, will turn you into a body horror monster.
I thought you were just going to say when you look outside, you see the game over screen.
Well, that too. So
yes, it's described as a horror game about curiosity. Hence the ever-present desire to look outside despite knowing that you should not.
I also saw some people saying it's like you're in a horror movie playing as the guy who doesn't know he's in a horror movie and keeps looking around.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So it's a sort of a mashup type game.
Unfortunately, it is, which is going to make this freaking impossible to mash up this game that is nothing with this game that is already four things.
So you have your apartment with your nice friend, the eyeball on the wall.
Yep.
And when you're in your apartment, you're safe. And you can perform various like basic hygiene tasks to take care of yourself. There used to be like more tasks you had to do apparently, like washing your dishes or doing your laundry, but apparently it got a little bit too tedious eventually, so they scaled it back to just things related to your character.
Notably, the game makes you look at yourself in the mirror a lot.
Yes.
Which I thought was a nice underline to how slightly weird you look, and also a nice alignment with some of the themes of guilt and making the right choices and having to look at yourself that come up in the game.
Yes. But you also have limited supplies in your apartment, so you cannot stay in your nice, safe apartment forever. You have to wander out into the rest of your apartment block, where things are not going great everywhere. The more you explore, like, the higher the risk level gets, and the more you can find things. But eventually you do want to go back to your apartment before you die and lose your progress. And while you're out there, you can find some NPCs that might ask you to do things. You get into turn-based battles with various monsters. Other things happen. There's a wide variety of events that you can get to happen and the ways that you can respond to said events. So everybody's playthrough will be quite different from each other a lot of the time. I did think the Wikipedia summary was pointing out, like, oh, it got some, like, it was too hard versus it was too easy criticisms.
Yeah.
Which seemed to be entirely dependent on people's choices, whether that led them to gaining party members or not.
Yeah.
Which is really, like, interesting to think about, like, that, thinking about balancing difficulty there when you can go through the whole game without making any friends versus, like, making all the friends.
Yeah, the game asks you to do a lot of, I mean, like, basically all of your neighbors at this point are monsters. But they're people also. So the game asks you to do a lot of deciding, like, under what scenario will you welcome someone into your apartment, and under what scenario will you kill them in turn-based combat.
There's also cases like, I was reading an interview specifically on the monster design, on the site Bogleach.
Sure.
And they're talking about, like, this big mouth that appears at one point in the game and chases you. And the design was supposed to be, like, give you the impression that, one, you're not supposed to get run into by it. That it'll be, like, an automatically game over if you get run into by it. But it's not. So for any player who is brave and stands their ground, they get into a battle with it. And then start to feel like, well, maybe this battle is unwinnable. And so you try to back out and run away and then run away from there. But it is winnable. And then if you talk to the grinning mouth afterwards, she'll be sorry for attacking you and will join your party. So just, like, that's the sort of example of the types of, like, series of events that, like, a lot of players will just run away from the grinning mouth when they first see it. But if you do all these other different things and push at the game in various ways, you can have an entirely different relationship with the creepy mouth creature.
And similarly, I won't spoil the endings of the game, but it can go
Of
in
which
like,
they've added more in
Yeah.
like the last update and stuff.
it can go in like a dozen very distinct but like valid ending directions. So you find out early on, I think from your eyeball neighbor, that ultimately there will be some resolution to this situation in 15 days.
Yeah.
So that puts a kind of a time limit on your story. And yeah, there are some very distinct ways that the story can go. And when I was reading it at first, I was like, oh, there's a good ending. But, debatable. Your mileage may vary. I got to what I thought was the good ending, and then I kept going, and I was like, oh, maybe there's other stuff. Maybe that wasn't the good ending. So it's a complex little game.
Yeah.
And I also
I suppose the systems themselves aren't that
right.
like complicated. But it still very much impresses me that this was made so quickly. The guy just seems to really like making monsters. In a lot of his other interviews, he's talking about his main project, of which apparently he has 1,500 monster designs at this point.
Wow.
For that. So dude just loves making little pixel monster creatures, and good for him.
Yeah.
But I imagine that helped the development process go faster.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a testament to the power of having like cool and freaky art.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's really, I mean, that's really what I think you could point to that made this game really pop off. Or that built enough momentum that he was then able to get Devolver to bite on it and actually build it out.
Yeah. One of the inspirations that he cited for this, in an article on a Medium blog from Maxon Lima, was Sweet Home, which I believe we've talked about briefly before because we've done a Resident Evil episode, and this was like a inspiration for the Resident Evil series. But in Sweet Home, you're exploring a haunted house, but it has like Dragon Quest like combat in it, but it's from a horror movie that the game was based on, and when they were remaking it in 3D for real time, they lost the rights to that, and that's what became the first Resident Evil. And apparently this was like, he was thinking about like, okay, it's like an ultimate timeline where the survival horror genre like stayed in the turn-based RPG space of Sweet Home. And that's what I'm working in with Look Outside, and his main game, which is called Madelyn, the Cursed City, that he's working on now. Which is interesting to think about.
It's hard to imagine, though, really. The siren song of the jump scare is too strong.
But you can get jump scared in this still.
I know. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I think that...
Because you're still moving around spaces.
No, and I know. And people talk
around.
about jump scares in this game.
Is the random encounter not its own form of jump scares sometimes?
You're not wrong. None of this is wrong. Yeah. But I think as graphics got more realistic, at least to the PS1 level that we all adore, apparently, it just becomes too tempting to have someone in real time jumping out and running and then eating you, right?
Sure.
I think the power of that, maybe a stronger history of the turn-based could have been built so that it didn't like totally disappear, but I don't know. Western audiences don't love turn-based combat.
Yeah?
Oh
yeah, if this year has shown us anything, it's that they hate turn-based combat.
What I mean to say is I think the prevailing opinion for a number of years is that Western audiences don't really like turn-based combat.
No, I mean, it's ultimately just that the first Resident Evil was more influential than the original Sweet Home.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it worked. So it split into like, it took Resident Evil and they split into like the pure, more action parts and the puzzle adventure parts. Left the turn-based combat behind. But theoretically, if someone released Sweet Home and they made Sweet Home 2 and it was also turn-based, obviously that was not the direction they were going, but that's why it's an alternate universe take, right?
I know.
You never know what game is going to be the influential one when you first release it.
That is true. I guess I'm just making the potential argument that the power of somebody running away from a monster in real time and it never breaking into an artificial turn-based scenario, just being able to keep up that horror is a little bit too powerful of a tool for me to imagine this being the dominant genre. That's my hot take. I think that there's versions where there could be a much richer tradition of this, but I think the sickos are too sick.
I mean, for what it's worth, that has been where the RPG maker horror space has been.
Yep.
There've been the puzzle ones, of course, but there's also been ones with some form of turn-based combat. So it's not like they've been non-existent. There's been this dedicated, I think, indie space for these types of games that this is obviously also rising out of, just at a slightly higher profile than some of the other ones.
Thanks, Devolver.
Yeah.
Do you think his other game that he's been working on for 10 years will actually come out?
Clearly he can finish a game.
I know. Well, that's what's baffling to me, right?
I mean, the game just seems to be very big.
Yeah.
From, like, so many words and so many monsters, and that's probably what is taking so long. But, I mean, he's clearly capable of finishing things, so it's entirely possible this game will come out. And he's talked to Devolver about it as well. That's why he had these connections. So there's that part to it.
On the flip side now, though, he must have a bunch of money. And so now he can work on that game for as long as he wishes.
So true. Yeah.
So,
and you know what? If that's what brings him joy, more power to him.
Good for him.
But people really, really liked Look Outside. I saw a lot of, like, groundswell.
Yeah.
Groundswell for it. Didn't quite break into, like, any of the major award spaces. But I did see people talking about it in award season for being notable. These games... Games where you can miss stuff stress me out.
Yeah.
I really gotta fix that about myself, I think.
It's difficult. It's a personality flaw, so...
Yeah.
Or,
I will own that as my own problem.
More charitably, it's a human nature thing that is hard to break through.
Yeah. Well, any other thoughts about Look Outside?
People do love an indie survival horror.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I do think horror is very big in the indie space. I mean, until recently, people were, the Resident Evil was doing 5 and 6 for a while, were not very well received, especially as, like, horror games.
Yeah.
Silent Hill was struggling since, like, 4, charitably. There's like The Evil Within. I don't know. Horror feels like a big genre, but I feel like there are not actually that many big AAA like horror franchises that have been remarkably consistent over the years. And so I think it's a lot of people responding to, like, yeah, I loved the first 2 Silent Hills and the first 4 Resident Evils, and I want to make a game like that, So there's a lot of those types of games.
And what does it say that we yearn for horror games again? Probably nothing good.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's good for a collective psyche that we're really enjoying games where we're just one guy in a world that makes no sense, surrounded by monsters, having to feed ourselves and sleep and shower and play video games. That doesn't sound like anything at all.
No. Not at all. All right, the mashup is just, I've already given up.
Well, okay. So we've got top-down. It's a top-down shooter, right? I'm saying that right.
Correct.
We've got arcade shooter. We've got life management, survival game sort of stuff.
It has, the exploration is top down.
Yes.
So that's my.
I meant, okay, so I'm just trying to break it down to the aspects.
Sure.
So we've got the survival game type of stuff, which is like the taking care of yourself in your apartment. The horrors, the turn-based combat. That's what we got. 3 of those are from Look Outside, 1 of those is from Geometry Wars.
Yeah. Those are certainly component parts.
I mean, I guess Geometry Wars isn't really in space. I'm just thinking about that because most of the other arcade titles that are like that are in space. There is something like broken down into like its Euclidean parts, kind of horrific.
Yep.
If you think about that.
Yep.
So maybe you're a little guy in a world that's started like breaking down into like shapes, into like abstract parts.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's like a cubist thing.
Yeah.
Like a cubist horror game could be interesting.
Yeah. I don't really know what's happening. Or what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't either. The horrors.
Maybe you're like, there's a lot of looking in the mirror and look outside. So maybe it's like your conception of yourself has to be like strong for you to continue to survive without breaking up into disparate shapes.
Okay.
And maybe it's like Disco Elysium and you have amnesia.
Okay.
And so you have to sort of venture out into the world to try to find like people who know who you are or things that you own and like put them together into a shape of yourself. And depending on sort of the actions you take and the things that you find, that shape of yourself like changes. And so the form you take at the end is like different depending on your choices and your actions.
Like the fruit face art.
Is that the Cécile Pas and Peep guy?
Oh, no. That's good too, though. I was thinking apparently of Vertumnus, which is a guy is made up of vegetables, basically.
Am I right that guy had like paintings of people fruit? Am I imagining that?
Pipe guy, people, fruit, painting. This is not an art history podcast. Oh, Magritte.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did?
Correct.
Yes.
The Son of Man. It's a guy in a bowler hat with an apple.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well done. There's already a reference to it in The Sims 4.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
There's a fruit face guy.
Fruit face guy, got it.
I could try to send it to you.
That's okay. You can send it to me after.
I'm texting you fruit face guy.
Okay.
Yes, I think you can ultimately end up with yourself in a bunch of freaky arts, like scary art styles, and you don't actually know what you're going to look like until the end.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And there's top-down shooting.
Yeah.
No,
well, like,
we're just taking the shapes,
so
I guess.
In this one, when you, instead of it being a turn-based combat thing, like instead when you leave your safe space or whatever to gather materials. It's like a, like a shooter.
Okay.
Or like a, kind of bullet hell-y thing.
Sure. There's shapes flying everywhere because everything's falling apart.
Exactly.
So maybe not shooting, but it is like sort of a dodging.
Well, it could be
scenario.
It could be like to get, you're out there in the shooty world, and to get the thing, you have to, destroy it. I don't know. A lot of possibilities for the gameplay here.
Yeah, but I like this concept actually.
Well, and it's got
so myself.
a bold art style, so that's good.
Yes, it should be garish enough that it's hard to look at slightly. Probably.
Yeah. And the art style is really what we need here, so that's good. That's good.
Do you have any other ideas? Any good ones? Any bad ones?
It's Geometry Wars, but every once in a while there's a jump scare.
That kind of is what it is when, like, the scary shapes start appearing.
Yeah.
Is
Geometry Wars a survival horror game? Is that what you're about to ask? No.
No, I was gonna say, do we owe, like, Vampire Survivors to Geometry Wars?
That, I think we kind of probably do. Yes.
I was just thinking about it, because essentially the way that works is, like, there are certain types of enemies that might as well be shapes, right? They've just made them into to things. And then the scarier enemies start appearing the longer you go.
Yes. So you're right to say that ultimately Vampire Survivors is basically a mashup of these two games. Correct.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. We did it.
We've got a winner. We've got a hit. No, I have nothing better to offer. I think you came up with something pretty good there, and I think Vampire Survivors is going to sell like hotcakes. Geometry Survivors.
They should. Now there's an idea for the revival.
Yeah.
The survivors like people don't need all those bells and whistles. Just give them some shapes, and I think they will still have fun.
Agreed.
We just want that number going up.
And bunch of stuff on screen.
Yeah.
Number go up, bunch of stuff on screen.
Exactly.
Geometry Survivors. Coming soon to Steam and Nintendo Switch 2. Well, listeners, that's what we've got. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
What is your favorite shape? Are you pro or con for geometry and wars? If somebody said to you, look outside, no, don't, would it already be too late for you? If your body shape had to incorporate a giant eye, how?
Or a giant mouth.
One of the two. If you have thoughts about this or anything else we talked about this week, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog. But most importantly, if you enjoy the show, you ought to subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, wherever you can find podcasts. Go ahead and subscribe to Talk This so you never miss an episode on Sundays. It's Emma's side quest next week.
Yes.
But then what are we talking about in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, we are talking about Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth for
cool.
our game.
Great. Sure.
And Absalom for our new game.
Cool. So look forward to that. And then the following week, it's a very special episode of Talk This, where we'll be talking about, it's really not this.
Yes. Talk about anything but this.
Talk that.
Because we will be traveling, so it will be an episode in advance.
No.
An episode at noon on Sunday, that's easier to record.
Correct.
Yeah. So, because we can't do any research ahead of time. But we still have to do it live.
That's right. That's correct.
But we'll be talking about anything but games.
And then you'll get our very jet lagged 7 weeks in gaming.
Yeah.
Following that. So that's this week's show. Thanks for listening. Emma, blast off.
This week, I hope that you become a very pleasing shape.